Hey, help support the show by becoming a member on Patreon or YouTube. You'll get 4 bonus videos a month, plus ad-free versions of every Junkyard pod, and a special shout out at the beginning of each video. This is the best way to help me as a creator, and so thank you, and go Cavs.
This is the moment we've all been waiting for the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world. Let's get ready to
Welcome to the Junkyard Pod. I'm Tony Pesta, joined by Jackson Flickinger and the Cleveland Cavaliers. Against all odds, despite making it way harder on themselves than they needed to, they are up 2-0, headed back to Miami. It doesn't matter how much you win by in the playoffs, all right? 2-0 is 2-0, and so I know we're gonna criticize. We're gonna pick some of the areas that they kind of fell apart at, and we're gonna talk about it fairly. We got Danny Cunningham in the background recording.
Take three, by the way, for Danny.
This is his take for what does he call it again? I'm blanking on it.
94 feet.
94 feet with Danny Cunningham. Yeah. Shout out to Danny and Locked On Cavs. Glad that we managed to get him in the background doing that. But the Cleveland Cavaliers, they almost disappeared down the stretch of this game. And so we're going to talk about it. But I did want to open up with that saying it's just like, you know what? They are up 2-0. And I think a little bit of adversity against Miami, against Eric Spoelstra, closing out a close game against them. While it was on the back of Donovan Mitchell, I do think it's good for this team. I do think there's a lot of things that they can learn from it. And that's how I'm feeling. We're up 2-0 in the series. Jackson, at one point in this game, it was a literal cavalanche. There was actual fake snow. I get actual fake snow is kind of contradictory, but there was fake snow falling from the rafters. Artificial snow falling from the rafters as the Cavs were building up their early lead. So I want to hear the vibes during that portion of the game, and then what the hell happened in the second half when this was all of a sudden a 2-point game.
The Cavaliers was sick. Do want to say that the fake snow was pretty cool. It was really it was light enough, so it wasn't like a problem, but you could still see it. It was kind of sick. I do have a problem with when they shot it off, because if you shoot it off in the second quarter, it feels a little bit like the game's over. Like it has very much like a confetti feel. And you can't have a Cavalier and then nearly lose the game. And they tried really hard to lose the game. So I think it's important to kind of get that out of the way. And I do know Donovan talked about post game. Every time they lose, and they didn't lose, but every time they lose, he has quotes about how he likes being a sicko and how he's like, actually, I enjoyed that they almost lost. And I don't get that, by the way. But the Heat won, I believe it's 37 games. I don't have it in front of me. I believe they won 37 games. When the Cavs won their 37th game?
February, March.
It was like January 28th.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about how good this Heat team is, I know they've been through a lot, and I know they're an Eric Spoelstra team, and I know they're really good. They're a bad team, man.
It's like a new Heat team, though, compared. They only had since the Jimmy Butler trade, and I think they got worse. Losing Jimmy
and they
Butler,
lost 10 in a row right after. Yeah. So that's it's important to remember too.
Jimmy Butler on your team, this is a better Miami Heat team, but I do think they're a little bit I think they're closer to 45 wins probably. But regardless, the
Cavs won 45 games last year. They're not that good.
They won 48, I think. Either way, let's not get stuck on that. But the point is, I do think they're better than the 10 seed. But you should beat the Miami Heat, and they did. They almost blew it. So we'll get to that real quick. But I want to start just like the Cavs started with the positives.
Yes.
They hit 11 3-pointers in the second quarter, Jackson. That was unreal. That was and you're right. They hit the Cavalanche button a little too early because they hit the fake Cavalanche in the arena after the second three, and it was all right, maybe
it was an 18-4 run. It was a worthy run.
But we were down by
it was early
when it happened, so we were only up by 5 at that point. It was just the podcast is focusing on all the wrong things right now. Let's talk about what actually.
No, we're focusing on all the right things.
The game started off Ty Jerome hit like a deep three. He's getting N1s. Darius Garland's cooking one-on-one. Evan Mobley's playing well. Max Strus is hitting threes. Everything was off to a good start. The Cavs go up by 19. I think that was their largest lead at one point.
It was.
And then, like, throughout that entire first half, really the first, almost 3 quarters, the offense, the process was good. On defense, they're forcing the Miami Heat into a bunch. Like, Bam took a couple threes. Khalil Ware took a 3. It was a bunch of jump shots. It was a bunch of stuff at the end of the shot clock. Both sides of the floor, the Cavs were really locked in, and the process was great. I was so happy with the process, and the results were showing. They were up by 19. But there was one thing that had me a little bit concerned entering the third quarter is I just kept looking at it and saying, well, damn, you hit 11 threes in the second quarter, and it was like a 13-point game at halftime or a 15-point game. I'm like, this Miami Heat team is still in the 15 points. You're still in the game. It's obviously a huge hurdle to overcome, but the Cavs hadn't put them away. And it's the playoffs. No team, unless you're like the Memphis Grizzlies, I guess, no team is going to just roll over and take it for the entire second half. No, they're like the Miami Heat. We've known for years that they're going to keep on fighting. And so the Cavs, it felt like they took their foot off the gas a little bit. Some of the intensity decreased, and the attention to detail was the biggest thing that really bothered me because they were getting beat on the glass. They were leaving 3-point shooters open. Jarrett Allen had a play. I'm blanking on what exactly happened. It was Davion Mitchell, fourth quarter. He drives in, kind of, throws a little bit of an arm at Darius Garland. Darius Garland goes flying or whatever. Jarrett Allen pulls a 20-23. He doesn't get all the way out to contest the shot, but he does leave Khalil Ware behind him, and Davion Mitchell just makes an alley-oop.
It's a very easy lob, yeah.
It was the easiest lob of all time, and Allen's just in the middle of no man's land. There was a couple times where things like that happened. It didn't always burn the Cavs, but again, I'm just looking at the process, and I just felt like they let their foot off the gas. They took their eye off the ball, whatever other analogy you want to make. Cavs nearly blew this game by not staying locked in for 48 minutes, and that was a little bit of a concern.
Yeah, I mean, okay, we want to start with the good. So I do have some good things that I did want to say. One thing that the Cavs have a significant talent advantage, and I think it's hard to overstate how much of a talent advantage they really have. There was a play right after Ty Jerome had 6 points. He had 0 after the first 3 minutes he was in the game. Tough day for me with my FanDuel picks on fearthesword.com. Do not ever listen to me. But he had a play where after he hit the 3, as soon as he came across the half court line, they doubled him, and he kind of didn't see it coming. That's not something that they were doing earlier. But then he kind of falls away, gives this cross court pass to Donovan Mitchell, and then he rifles one to a cutting Evan Mobley for an and one. And it's this Heat team can't stay with the Cavs. They just don't have the talent. Even when they try to do different things, it's they're playing whack-a-mole. You can take away Ty Jerome, but you can't take away, Evan Mobley. You can't take away DeAndre Hunter and also the guards. There's just so many things that the Cavs have advantages with where it doesn't feel like it shouldn't be this close of a game. And that first half, that second quarter really showed that where yeah, they hit a lot of shots, but it was also they were generating some grade A looks, and that's where I'm sort of struggling with the second half, like you are.
Yeah. And just to be clear, I still think that the Cavs are going to win this in 4 or 5. I feel like if you're Miami, you're upset that you were basically being held underwater for both of these games, the entirety of the game, but you were still within somewhat striking distance for most of game 1 until the fourth quarter Cavaliers. Then in this game, you got it down to 2, just a minute or 2 left. And so you're feeling like you're competitive enough to maybe at least steal 1 at home. I'm sure they have higher hopes than that, but I wouldn't be surprised if this goes 5. But the Cavs, the second half, the main thing is we're focusing on, the possession battle, right? That was a huge thing that they did in game 1 is that they didn't do the best job on the boards, but they did win in the possession battle. They did out-rebound the Miami Heat. They took care of the ball. And in the second half of this game, the Heat had 6 offensive rebounds in the second half alone. At least 3 of them, when I was trying to quickly rewatch some of this film before we started recording, at least 3 of those offensive rebounds turned directly into 3-point shots. And so that's huge when you're talking about cut. I mean, that's half the deficit right there. You were up by 18, 19. That's huge. They were getting all these second chance points. One thing I already mentioned, like Allen, other guys kind of overhelping. That was one thing that I think really bothered me, is it wasn't just Allen. I want to be clear. He was not the only one doing this, but in general, the Cavs overhelping, causing the entire defense to collapse and rotate. Miami was just really picking them apart, moving the ball around and knocking down shots. Like, yeah, listen, Davion Mitchell went 5 of 6 in the second half, 2 of 3 from deep. Haywood Highsmith went 2 of 3 from deep. They hit shots, right? Like they're shooting above their head, some of these guys in the series, but it's the playoffs. And so the last thing that I'll say, and then I'll let you go again, DeAndre Hunter frustrated me quite a bit in this game, despite the fact that he actually shot the ball much better than he did in the previous game. And the reason why he frustrated me was some of the rebounding stuff, some of the shot selection, some of the defense, but near the end of the game, I think it was probably the last minute that he was on the court, Miami's moving the ball around. Bam Adebayo catches it at the top of the key. By the way, Bam was like 1 of 5 from 3 tonight. He's a guy who, if he has the ball above the break, you're willing to let him shoot. Yeah, he's 1 of 5 from 3. DeAndre Hunter sprints off of Davion Mitchell to go contest Bam. He swings it. Davion Mitchell hits his like 5th 3 of the game or whatever it was. Not 5th 3 of the game. Sorry, he only hit 2 threes all game. But his second 3 of the fourth quarter, he shot 7 of 9 from the floor. Dude was on fire. He was balling in the fourth quarter, and you just leave him wide open to contest Bam. That's what I'm talking about when I say lack of focus. DeAndre Hunter, what are you doing? Why are you leaving the guy who scored the last 8 points? It just stuff like that is what allowed Miami to creep back into the game. And when you play against a Boston or an Indiana, if you get that far, it's going to hurt that much more because there's just the talent gap is not as big.
I'm going to have to move because they're blowing up my spot.
Okay.
So
intermission. Junkyard pod intermission. They finally kicked Jackson out for his anti-Okoro agenda. It took a couple phone calls to Dan Gilbert, but he finally made it happen.
Okay.
Take it away. DeAndre Hunter from the
3.
top. This is what we get for making fun of Danny. Now we're on take 3.
This is what we get. Yeah, honestly, this is karma. This is the same thing as my silencing the people in the playback chat, and I never get to ask a question. So anyways, what I was going to say is that I feel like there's that corny phrase. I'm not sure who it's from, but those the hard work outworks talent if talent refuses to work. That corny Instagram phrase.
Like Kevin Durant. It's like his bio, I think it used to be.
Right.
Hard work beats talent when talent refuses to work hard or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's kind of what I felt like with the third and fourth quarter. Like you talked about them overhelping. And a lot of that feels like when you're not focused, it's easy to just see and react like, oh, someone's getting by, let me go. And also you're letting your guy get by because you don't have the focus that you need. And I think that's kind of what kept happening to the Cavs, where they just kept finding themselves in situations where they just weren't 100% locked in. And that's how you get a game that was a 19-point game. It becomes a 2-point game in the fourth quarter. And you need some really clutch shot making from Donovan Mitchell to actually win the game. And it shouldn't have ever had to come to that point, but it's not surprising that it did, given how the Cavs how the Cavs took their foot off the gas, because they completely took their foot off the gas. And that's where I don't know if it's concerning or not, because they didn't, they played poorly down the stretch. They missed some shots in the third quarter. They missed most of their threes in the third quarter. They regressed from their awesome second quarter. That's fine. But that's going to happen. I think that it's just a lot of they lost focus. They took their foot off the gas. In Miami, they never stopped trying. They came out in the second half. They were the more aggressive team. They were the more physical team. The Cavs starters actually did a pretty good job of holding them. But when they got to their bench, they kind of wore the Cavs bench down. And then they didn't really have a good lineup out there that succeeded until, the last 4 minutes of the game. That's when they started to, Donovan Mitchell picked it up even more. The starters got back in the game. So I don't know how concerned you should be. On one hand, it's like if they play like this, they're not going to beat a team like the Pacers. And I don't think the Pacers are a particularly good team. However, I think this is mostly because they took their foot off the gas. They stopped. They got away from what was working, And when that happens, when you lose focus, if a team is working really hard, they can still beat you. So that's Absolutely. What I think happened.
Yeah, and I think on offense, just the few clips that I was able to rewatch before we started, it actually seemed like they were generating mostly clean looks and they were just missing. But that's kind of like, I want to talk about the Evan Mobley stuff for a second. I'll get to that in just a moment. I want to hit on the Donovan Mitchell thing first because you mentioned it, and this is crazy stuff. Donovan Mitchell, like, listen, we're talking about how the Cavs took their foot off the gas and almost blew this game. Well, the reason why they didn't is because Donovan Mitchell had 17 points in the fourth quarter. Mm-hmm. He had 13 entering the fourth quarter. He scored 17 in the fourth. The Cavs made 7 field goals as a team in the fourth quarter. Donovan Mitchell made 6 of them. So only Darius Garland and the Darius Garland field goal that he made was like with 30 seconds left, and Donovan Mitchell missed the layup in transition. Yeah, it was a putback. So they basically some guys got free throws and stuff, but they basically went without a field goal for the entire fourth quarter without Donovan Mitchell, who stepped up big time at the end, and he hit 4-4 from 3. Some of them were really difficult shots. They mentioned this on the playback because some of them were so difficult. And I look at that and I'm like, yeah, these are the shots that we talk about when I'm like, when he misses it, we hate it. But when he makes it, he's the hero. And tonight he was the hero, thankfully, because 17 points in the fourth quarter. It's interesting, the Cavs, they only got outscored by 8 points in the second half, 4 points each quarter. The fourth quarter, let's be honest, they played the foul game. They kind of juiced up our numbers quite a bit. But still, it wasn't like it brings me back to what I said at the start. Not only did you kind of take your foot off the gas, but Miami, credit to them, they weathered that storm. When you were burying 11 3-pointers in the second quarter, you went into the second half only up by 15. That could have been a 25, 30-point lead when you're having a quarter like that. But Miami just keeps chipping away. They're working hard, as you said. And so they keep themselves in a position to, almost steal this game from the Cavs. But Donovan Mitchell comes up clutch, ends up leading them to victory. And this leads me to the Evan Mobley thing that I wanted to talk about. And I think we're seeing the Miami Heat. A lot of people are wondering, why isn't Evan Mobley getting the ball more? Why isn't he getting the ball more? He had 20 points today, 7 of 10 shooting, 6 rebounds, only 1 assist. Jarrett Allen also only 5 field goal attempts, 9 points. I think what Miami has done is they have very clearly said, I think Eric Spoelstra fully understands, if Mobley and Allen are catching the ball in the paint, we're probably cooked. We can't afford to let Allen and Mobley get all these easy looks in the paint. So they're playing zone. They're keeping the bigs glued to Mobley or Allen when they're down there, and they're basically daring, like, hey, let's see if the Cavs guards, their perimeter players, can beat us from the perimeter. And so far the Cavs have, but that's partly why Mobley and Allen aren't getting the ball. Now, they need to be more aggressive, especially Mobley needs to find a way to make himself available. And through 3 quarters, he did. Kind of got away from him in the fourth quarter. I don't think he didn't make a field goal in the fourth quarter. But that's why it's definitely a strategy for Miami, and they are kind of daring Cleveland to beat them with the 3-point variance, and the Cavs have done a good job of it, but I still think they should try to find more ways to beat the zone, to get Mobley involved, even when Miami is trying to keep him away from that. And that's something that in the second half, I feel like we saw kind of an issue that rose its head again, where it's like, hey, Evan Mobley, I think, had 19 points going into the fourth quarter. And I think he only took, or let me double check that. Sorry, I saw someone tweet it. Now I can't remember. Let me figure out exactly what that stat was.
Yeah, he wasn't a big offensive factor in the fourth quarter. We can definitely say that.
Yeah, he had 18 points going into the fourth quarter. Finished with just 2 points in the fourth quarter because he got 2 free throws. No field goal attempts in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, and I think it's sometimes tough to get bigs involved in the fourth quarter, especially late in games when the game kind of slows down, especially when you have a lead and you're kind of trying to work the clock a little bit. So I understand how that happens, but I do really think that this was I think I'm a little more optimistic about Mobley's game than you are.
I think it was a very good game from him. I've seen people on Twitter complaining.
Yeah, I think this was a really positive game. And Kenny talked about after the game how Evan really, he said it was the hardest he's seen him work. Like between games 1 and 2, he really wanted to see him respond well, and he did. Evan said that what he was working on those little floaters and touch shots around the rim, and then also a 3-point shot, and those are the things that allowed him to go 7 for 10 today. So you really like that when he kind of identifies the problem, like we saw him just get completely blown to sea by Bam consistently last game. This game, those shots were going. He was prepared for that, and he adjusted. And that's what I think is really impressive about Evan Mobley, like his ability to continue to develop and grow. And he identifies his weaknesses, and he finds ways to get better consistently. And I think that's what I'm going to take away from this game. And Donovan Mitchell always says this, and I love the quote. He says, like, this is the worst that Evan Mobley is going to be. Like, he's going to, continue to get better, and we've seen it night after night. And this is an example of how Evan Mobley can continue to get better, because I think it would be easy to kind of like, I'll take a back seat because of this is a series for Donovan and Darius, but no, you may not get your shots, but you need to be aggressive in the shots that you get. And that's one of my complaints I've had with Jarrett Allen sometimes, is that sometimes aggressiveness isn't like, oh, I'm going to take 17 shots. Aggressiveness is when I get my shots, I'm going to aggressively take it. Like, I think of Ty Jerome as somebody who consistently is aggressive with his shots. Like today, he only took 8 shots because he frankly didn't play very good, so he didn't have a lot of opportunities to take more. But when he gets his shot, he's aggressive in taking it. And I thought Mobley played that way today, and that's a very encouraging thing.
Yeah, I want to be clear. I think Mobley played a much better game than game one. I think it shows in the box score. Shooting 3 of 6 from 3 is huge for Evan Mobley in the playoffs. 7 of 10 from the floor overall, so he went perfect inside the 2-point range. Felt like anytime he did get an opportunity to score over a mismatch, just like for most of game one, he was pretty aggressive and went straight to it. But you mentioned, just staying aggressive. Something I want to mention about Jarrett Allen real quick. Only 9 points tonight. Didn't really get the ball all that often, but I thought he was aggressive when he did. And probably the more important thing, he was playing with a lot of energy on offense and defense. I thought that he was physical. I thought it wasn't a game where I'm like, does Jarrett Allen have seasonal depression? What's going on, right? Like, no. Even though he's not touching the ball, he's running the floor. He's being physical. He's playing with energy. He's a high energy guy, and that's a good thing to see because, again, there are some times where you're like, what's going on with Jarrett Allen? He looks sad. Like, he just looks like his heart isn't in it. But that hasn't been the case in either one of these playoff games, despite the fact that he's like the ball's not really going to him very often. It's not like he's had a whole bunch of field goal attempts, but he played with a lot of energy today too. And so I think the two bigs, we got beat on the glass today, but in all honesty, when they're on the court, and this is true for the regular season, when they're both on the court together, they're not the problem. It's when it's one big on the floor and they're playing with other guys where they're really getting crushed on the glass. And I thought in the fourth quarter especially, Kenny was going to, just Mobley with like Strus, Merrill, Jerome, Garland, or Mitchell. Like, it was basically Mobley and 4 guards or Allen and 4 guards and DeAndre Hunter. And man, they were just getting crushed on the glass. And our guy, Dean Wade, only 5 minutes. Can't get out. Get out on the floor.
All right, let me say something about.
I'm just pointing out that he's.
No, I am.
Okay.
Let me click this, Tony. So, like, the lineup that we've wanted to see forever. Dean Wade, last year, he had a child, and then he disappeared from the team for 4.5 months. Yeah. Nobody knows where he went. But before he disappeared, they had a 5-man lineup of Jarrett Allen, Donovan Mitchell, Max Strus, Isaac Okoro, and Dean. And they were 18-2 in that stretch, mostly with that starting lineup last year. This season, they have played 0 minutes. They played the same amount of minutes together as me and Tony Pesta have played for the Cleveland Cavaliers. So
that's actually absurd.
Kenny broke it out in the second quarter, and I said, "Let's go." Kenny is cooking. What do? They immediately just get out and start running. They start cooking the heat, and then it was almost like Kenny didn't it was almost like a secret. Like Kenny was like, "Oh no, like they're gonna figure out that I have the nuclear codes. We gotta put this under wraps." So then he did. He took him out, and then everything kind of fell apart from there. Honestly, everything did fall apart from there because that's when the run stopped, and that's when I think they got up to their 19-point lead at that point. So it's like, does Kenny have stuff that he has up his sleeve that he's ready to just use at any point in time? And if so, why aren't we seeing more of it? Because it's intentional. it's intentional to not play that lineup because that was such a good lineup. He knows he's big into lineup data. He knows that that's a good lineup. He intentionally put that lineup out there, and then he intentionally pulled it, even though it was good. So I just want to bookmark this in case like we get to the Celtics series, and then he's like, "All right, this is like the first bench lineup I'm going to." So just want to bookmark it.
It's saved. It's bookmarked. If I had post-it notes, I would write it down right now. But no, I do think I don't know why I said earlier that I'm not arguing for more Dean Wade minutes because I kind of am. At the same time, I understand he is doing cardio Dean. Like, let me be clear. He played almost 6 minutes and he only got a steal, didn't take a shot. But when you're getting crushed on the glass, Dean Wade's a good rebounder. And it would just be nice to maybe pivot to him at some point. Again, DeAndre Hunter, he scored the ball today. He shot 4 of 10. He was really good in the first half. But I still have some concerns about arguing to replace him in the rotation or anything. I'm just saying I think we could give Dean Wade some more minutes. There's another
Let
point
Hunter
that I
play
wanted
the 3. Like, this is something that I think that the good thing about DeAndre Hunter is you have some optionality, and when you play a team like the Celtics who are not going to traditionally beat you up on the glass, that's a team where going 4 out really makes a lot of sense with DeAndre Hunter. I think that on a team that can beat you up on the glass, the superpower of having like Dean Wade and DeAndre Hunter on your team is that, hey, we can switch this. We can switch this up. We can play Hunter and Wade minutes instead of Hunter and Okoro minutes. Hunter and Okoro minute. You know what I mean? Like, there's a different physicality that brings. That's not even a shot at Isaac Okoro, surprisingly enough. But like, so
hey, he hit a 3 today.
He did hit a 3.
Hit a 3. He went 1 for 1.
He played fine. He played
I gave him a
perfectly
bad
fine.
grade today, though. I did. I gave him a bad grade.
I give Sam bad.
Court, and it felt like he wasn't impacting anything on defense. And I know he hit a 3, which is nice, but didn't do anything else. And I know you can say, well, he never does anything, but like, I never felt at any point that he was impacting the game. There was a couple moments where guys scored over him. Davion Mitchell put his shoulder into him and got a bucket. And I was like, okay, I mean, like, maybe I was way too harsh on Okoro in the grades today, but I just felt like if he's not really bringing much on offense, he's not really rebounding, and he's not getting the stops today, then it's hard for me to give him a good grade. I still think he can lock up Davion Mitchell. Like, I still think that's a matchup that I'll take more often than not, but he didn't do it today. Davion Mitchell has been honestly on fire. I think he shot 8 of 12 the first game, 7 of 9 this game. Davion Mitchell's been on fire. Credit to him. I have 2 quick things that I want to say. One, I might as well, since I'm already talking about the Heat players real quick. Bam Adebayo had 24 points on 22 shots in game 1, just 11 points on 9 field goal attempts in game 2. And I actually think if you're Miami, having those shots go to Tyler Herro instead, and Tyler Herro having 33 points on 14 of 24 shooting with 5 assists, that's probably the way you want to play more often. I think the fact that the Cavs funneled so many mid-range jumpers to Bam in the first game was something that it looks good when they're going in, but they're not the way you're going to beat the Cavs. And so I think that the Miami Heat clearly pivoted to Tyler Herro a little bit more. They were able to get him going, and that in turn got the rest of their guys going. Highsmith, 5 of 6 from 3 tonight. Nikola Jovic got on the floor, and don't get me wrong, he airballed a couple shots. He went 1 of 8 from deep, and it was kind of bad. But when I talk about the Cavs getting beat on the glass, 1, he had 8 rebounds in 24 minutes, and 2, this is where he kept getting switched onto Sam Merrill or Okoro, whoever else, and he has such a big size advantage. And the Cavs, it was like their wires were crossed. They just kept overhelping and double teaming and scrambling around and leaving guys open. And he wasn't getting direct assists really, but it would be like he'd kick it out and then they swing it around, someone's open. I'm like, guys, it's Nikola Jovic. If he scores on you, you live with it. Like, you don't have to send so many guys towards him. It was driving me crazy.
I know there was a lot of things. Like, that's what I said. They just lost focus in the second half. Like, it's at some point it's not worth overanalyzing it because this is not the team that they were for the first 3 quarters. It's not the team that or the first 2.5 quarters. It's not the team that they've been mostly throughout the season or throughout the series. So,
and they held on, right? They held on and got the win despite it. So it's still something to keep an eye on. Like, you don't want to have, if you have like lapses like that to Boston or Indiana, you might be down in the hole rather than still up 2. But yeah, it's still good. Like I said at the start, they weathered the storm and they closed out a game. And I think that's a sign of maturity for this Cavs team. I know Donovan Mitchell kind of just went hero mode, but they still locked in and got the job done, which it's not easy to do in the playoffs. And all you have to do is look at previous Cavs seasons and know that that's not something that they were really doing against New York or Orlando or certainly not Boston. So it's a good sign.
Yeah. What do you think is going to happen in Game 3? Like, what adjustments do you think the Cavs are making? How do you think it plays out?
Game 3, the 2 games in Miami are going to be interesting because I think Miami, honestly, it's felt like they've shot a little above their heads at times. Like their numbers aren't anything crazy, but some of the shot making has felt a little unsustainable. But then you can turn around and say some of the same thing. Like, listen, the Cavs were 22 of 45 from 3 tonight. They shot 48% from 3 and hit 22 threes, and they almost lost this game. And so I'm really interested
in the second half.
I'm interested to see what happens if the 3-point variance starts to slide the other way and the Cavs aren't hitting threes. I know they can win games when they're not making threes because they did it for 3 years, but I'm interested to see what happens there. Ty Jerome, I'm interested to see. He went 2 of 8 tonight. Didn't really play all that well. Had a crucial turnover in the fourth quarter where they double teamed off of Darius Garland and Ty Jerome was just like still dribbling the ball and turned it over instead of giving it up. And so the bench to me, Cleveland's bench is much better than Miami's bench, but can the bench be a little more stable right now? Because we had the really bad DeAndre Hunter game. We had a bad Ty Jerome game. We also had an incredible miracle Ty Jerome game, so I'm not hating on him at all. But
it was a normal Ty Jerome game in game 1.
It was a normal Ty Jerome game, I guess. Can the bench get going and really, emphasize that talent gap? Can Darius Garland continue to shoot well? Can Donovan Mitchell continue to shoot well? And what do they do to get Evan Mobley even more involved? Because he had 20 points tonight. And honestly, it felt like he could have had 30 if they didn't go away from him. I know fourth quarter, things kind of got turned into the Donovan Mitchell show and it worked out. But I'd love to see, how can they maximize Evan Mobley moving forward? You got to keep finding new ways. Yeah,
I mean, one thing I hate about this Ty Jerome game is that he gave his biggest hater more fuel. Kenny might be coming back. Next, before this game, he said, "Well, we know Ty's not an all-star. He knows he's not a max player." Now he's going to be like, next game, if somebody asks him about Ty before, and he'll be like, "Well, he knows he's not a mid-level exception player." He's just happy to be. He's just happy to be on the team. Because he knows it's not guaranteed.
Kenny is really playing with fire with that quote because I'm like, if there's one person who's going to take that personal as a challenge, like Ty Jerome might just take $15 million to go play as a starter on some bad team and become an all-star now just to prove Kenny Atkinson wrong. If anyone doesn't know the quote, Jackson tweeted out before the game. Kenny Atkinson basically said something like, yeah, Ty Jerome, he's just a really humble guy. Like, he knows he's not an all-star or a max-level player. He just plays his role. And I guess his role is pulling 30-footers off the bench and destroying everybody because Ty Jerome is a lot of things, a lot of great things. I don't know if he's very humble when you hear him talk, and that's not even a knock on him. I think confidence is good.
Yeah, it's great. That's his best skill, I think, is his confidence. And he talked, so the whole quote was like, yeah, it started off with someone, I think someone was just, it was just like a softball question, like, Ty Jerome, what do you think about his, game yesterday or in game 1? And then Kenny was like, well, people think that Ty is a talker, and it's like, well, because we have visual evidence that he's a talker, and everybody you ask about Ty Jerome, they say, yeah, he won't shut up. But yeah, Kenny was like, yeah, he's not really a talker. He's really just a humble guy. He's really down to earth. He knows his role. He knows he's not an all-star. He knows he's not a max level player. And I was like, I don't know. Maybe you could say are we talking about Dean Wade? Maybe he thought he heard Dean Wade or Isaac Okoro,
Hey, well, easy on Okoro now. Come on.
Well, I'm just saying,
that's. I know, I'm kidding. Are we sure Jerome's not an all-star caliber player? By the way, I mean
that's what I'm saying. Have you seen his per 36 numbers, Mr. Atkinson? Yeah,
they're absolutely insane.
Anyway, he gave his biggest hater fuel, so he's going to be lucky to break 16 minutes in Game 3. So
yeah,
he better make the most of those 16 minutes supposed to play in Game 4. So anyways, that's all I got today.
Yeah, I think I'm all taked out. This is a game because it was so out of hand for it. Well, it didn't really get that out of hand, but because they were up by so much in the second and third quarter, they took their eye off the ball. Listen, I took my eye off the ball a little bit. We're talking about Fortnite on the playback stream. I didn't even, all of a sudden it's an 8-point game. And I'm like, whoa. How did we get here? So I got to go back and rewatch some of this and figure out exactly what happened. Like I said, I was able to watch some of it right before we started recording, but this is the live reaction. Not live, it's pre-recorded, but this is our instant reaction is what I meant to say.
I mean, we're live right now.
Yeah, this is true. We'll be back with
everything's live
before Game 3 to break down even more what happened in Game 2. And so if you like the show, make sure you subscribe on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify. If you really want to support us, become a member on Patreon. It's the best way to help out our channel. And yeah, Cavs up 2-0. Feels pretty good heading back to Miami. Make sure you guys are following Fear the Sword on playback.tv while we do live watch parties for these playoff games. And with all that said, go Cavs.
I agree. Go Cavs.